Hi, my name is Rukmini and I'm based in India, in Mumbai. I work in the corporate organization development and the peace building space, and identity-based conflicts are, of course, common in both of these areas. Since COVID hit, of course, it's been rather stark in every other area of life as well, particularly in India, where we're a country of over 1.3 billion people. And we went into a lockdown with practically no preparation and a 4-hour notice. It was announced at 8 p.m. local time, and by midnight, we were locked down. And that continued for over 3 months, much more in urban areas, of course. Now, identity polarization reared its ugly head rather early in the lockdown. And we fail to take into account the fact that as a country, we have millions of people that we term migrant laborers. Now, these are not migrants from another country, but they migrate from villages in India to cities to find work, largely as daily wage earners. Now, when our lockdown began, they weren't earning anymore and they could not afford to live in the cities. They usually paid a bare minimum wage, which means they don't have any savings. And as a result, we had millions, and estimates say that the number is well above 10 million people, of them quite literally on the roads trying to walk back home from the cities. Given that practically all modes of transport were disallowed then, the only way they had was to walk. And for some of them, that meant the journey was well over 1,000 kilometers long. Of course, civil society tried to step up to whatever extent was possible in terms of trying to organize food and other relief material. But with a pandemic raging and in the hot Indian summer, you can imagine how challenging this was for the migrants. The stories that emerged were heartrending, and they speak of how various forms of identity, be it gender, class, caste, religion, they leave people in a space of absolute disadvantage and despair. A very stark example of identity and economics making pawns of laborers was when a builders lobby, that's a lobby of powerful construction companies, approached one of our state governments, and they wanted to put a halt to migrant laborers leaving the state. Their argument and their fear was that once they leave, they may not want to come back. And then the builders won't be able to find cheap labor too, and their projects get impacted. Having said that, none of them offered to take care of their laborers during the lockdown. No one offered food or shelter or even bare minimum money to survive in a city. What was shocking was that the state government agreed with these lobbyists and they halted the movement of laborers. Still, there was a massive uproar online and they had to retract that decision. This is a picture that breaks my heart, and I'd like to read a poem that I had written about it. Look into the little one's eyes and tell him slavery does not exist anymore. Place your hand on your heart and promise him that his freedom will always be honored. Now look into the mirror and tell yourself that you told the truth. Do your eyes believe you? Even as the little one's future is sold to his father's masters, who dictate whether or not he deserves the luxury of a home. Look into the little one's eyes and tell him the future is inclusive. Place your hand on your heart and promise him that his choices matter. Now look into the mirror and keep looking, waiting in trust that the little one grows up believing all that you said as he is carried forth by a choiceless father. Do you have the courage to look into the little one's eyes? A dialogue-based initiative called Look into the Mirror was born out of this need to build capacity and courage, so that we may be able to look into the eyes of another, regardless of their identity, and treat them with the respect they deserve as human beings. And while I'm talking about India, this is true for us across the globe. Over centuries, we've willfully co-created a system that has brought on climate change, rape of the planet, oppression of billions in the name of socio-political ideologies, pandemics of hunger and poverty that we're not even talking about. And when COVID exposed the intentions of this system across the world in varied forms, we notice that the system draws out its claws in self-preservation. It attempts to blame and vilify a virus and avoids to take responsibility for what's happening in the world. The system is not out there. It lives in us. It lives as us. And it's time to take a long, hard look in the mirror and start shifting the system that is us. So this series of dialogue called Look into the Mirror is dedicated to inner truth and reconciliation. It's a service offering with a global intent and local focus. Currently, the initiative is being held online and it's open for participation by anyone from across the world. The invitation is to come into a structured dialogue process with courage in your heart and openness in your mind. The only ground rules are respect and authenticity. In this space, we do not promise ease. We guarantee discomfort. We do not promise answers. In fact, we hope to generate more questions. We do not and cannot promise peace, but we do strive to create an aspiration for it. We hope that in the long run, we will be able to leverage on multiple forms of capital, be it time or skills or networks, technical expertise, to be able to continue these dialogue spaces online and offline, and also very importantly, to create community action projects locally that allow for local actions and extended conversations around identities and reconciliation around them. So far in the last 4 months, we've dialogued around casteism in India, around the partition between India and Pakistan way back in 1947 and the collective trauma that it's left behind. We've spoken about racism in India, and we've spoken about the loss of and the need to reconcile with indigenous wisdom and worldviews. Each of these conversations have opened up huge potential for extended dialogues and, of course, inner work. You can look up these dialogue recordings on our YouTube channel, which is called Exult Solutions. And the reason we're taking an inside-out approach to truth and reconciliation is because no matter how much we patch the system outside, we carry our notional identities within us. The only way polarization can be remedied is by each one of us doing the much needed inner work, painful as it may seem. Of course, it's a lot of emotional labor, but it enables us to see the injustice that we mete out consciously or more often unconsciously to the people that we consider others. Once we begin to see that ugly truth, there is then a chance at reconciliation. It's a long road ahead, of course, but that's where 2020 has brought us all individually and collectively. So let's honor the opportunity at hand and volunteer to learn the lessons that we're being presented with. Thank you.